is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome into the FNIA podcast. So we are served by Applebee's. You know, Coach Dungy right there in the middle. He is down there in Florida braving it out. Rodney Harrison as well. So, fellas, we have really our first big news on the FNIA podcast, and that is Robert Saleh is no longer going to be leading the New York Jets. Coach Dungy, I come straight to you after the 2-3 start. Your thoughts?
I know people are going to look at me like an ex-coach and say, well, he always defends the coaches. But, Jack, this is absolutely ridiculous. Rodney, I cannot believe it. 5 games in, you're getting ready to play a game that if you win, you're going to be in first place in your division, and you change coaches. Now, we just came from a spot in Pittsburgh Sunday night. They've had 3 coaches, and 56 years they haven't fired a coach. You're going to fire a coach after 5 games when you're that close to first place? And it takes me back to my 4th year coaching the Buccaneers. We start out with the exact same record, 2-3. Disappointed. Everybody's upset. We're trying to figure things out. We aren't playing great. Our ownership stayed with me. We won 9 straight, went to the playoffs, and we're that far from going to the Super Bowl. And it just to make this move after 5 games, I'm just beside myself. It makes no sense to me. Does this give your team a better chance to win this coming week? I don't think so. I don't see anywhere in the world it does, Rod.
Coach, I absolutely 100% agree with you. I think Robert Saleh is a coach that's learning. And for them not to have given him any grace, having to deal with Aaron Rodgers and all the things that you have to go through dealing with Aaron Rodgers. But to me, Coach, this is the worst job in all of football because you always have to constantly deal with the media. You don't have a quarterback. You got a 40-year-old quarterback. Before that, you had Zach Wilson. And to fire this guy and knowing some guys in that locker room and the way they feel about Robert Saleh, and if you cannot tell me if Aaron Rodgers would have went up to the owner and said, hey, this is the guy that we need to lead our football team, they would have never fired him in a million years. So I believe that Aaron Rodgers had some impact on the firing of Robert Saleh. But I agree with you, Coach. This is absolutely ridiculous. They're 1 game away from being in first place. How do you do that? How do you come? And as an owner, you don't know the tone of the locker room unless you ask somebody. And even if you ask somebody, you truly still don't know the tone of the locker room. For him to come in and do something like that was absolutely ridiculous, and it wasn't right to Robert Saleh. He deserved better.
We were there at the Hall of Fame game last year to open up the year. These guys were so excited about playing for Robert Saleh, their defense. It just the tone that they had, the energy they had, the togetherness, I cannot see that disintegrating in 1 year like this. I just can't believe it.
And this is the same ownership that didn't sign Hassan Reddick, right? They traded for him, but didn't sign him to a long-term contract, right? This is the same ownership, the same management.
You've given up a lot to get this guy. He's not there. You've had some different injuries and things, but it's 5 games in. Okay, they've got the exact same record San Francisco has right now. San Francisco was in the Super Bowl last year.
I'm going to tell you this.
I don't think they're going to fire their coach.
Hold on, guys. The guy they should have thought about firing was they fired the wrong guy. It should have been Nathaniel Hackett. That who it should have been, the offensive coordinator. Because, Coach, when you look at this offense, they're predictable. They do the same things over and over again. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing exotic. It's nothing creative. It's just a bland offense. It's Aaron Rodgers dropping back the pass, trying to get rid of it quick, or it's some lousy play action pass that they're trying to. It's nothing special to this offense. They should have changed offensive coordinators if they were going to make a change.
Jack, we're going to be talking in a few minutes about teams that aren't playing great, that are at the bottom of the league. Cincinnati's 1-4. The Saints are playing terrible. Philadelphia is not playing well. San Francisco's 2-3. If everybody had a knee-jerk reaction and said, hey, I'm going to fire my coach after 5 games because we aren't playing well, we wouldn't have anybody coaching.
Fair enough. And we've seen little glimpses of the Jets look good this year, and it was when Rodgers was healthy for about 5 minutes, where he could move and you saw him look athletic just for a first down run or something. Then he started taking a couple of hits. And then he looked like he was 40-plus years old. And then the Jets just looked so stagnant and slow on offense. And it looked like they had a 40-some-year-old quarterback. So what is the biggest issue with the Jets right now?
They're not playing great offense right
that.
now. Go ahead, Coach. They're not playing great offense right now, but sometimes the offense doesn't gel right away. And Aaron Rodgers missed the whole year. And he's coming back and he's trying to get to know his receivers. And you know, they've played some tight games. They've lost them. But we're still only a month into the season. I don't understand it.
They're still learning and growing as an offense, but the real issue is it's the quarterback. He's old. He can't move. And as much as he's tough, and, you know, we give him a lot of credit for being tough, going out the game, coming back, fighting and clawing. We know how much of a battler he is. But at the end of the day, he can't play the way he played in the past. So they're very limited offensively. They can't do some of the things. He can't get outside the pocket. He can't move. The pass rush, the offensive line isn't on the level that we thought it would be. And they're a little older. It's just a lot of things. And then they don't have great weapons. Mike Williams has been average. Alan Lazard, he's dropped some passes. They have one legitimate threat in the passing game.
Yeah, and that's Garrett Wilson. Yep. But even then, haven't been on the same page really. They've been a little, Garrett's cutting here. Rodgers is throwing there. We've seen those moments with them.
They're off. But with all that said, if they win Monday night, they're in first place. So that's the state of the NFL. And I guess I just come from a place in Pittsburgh. As I said, we were just there, and I lived it for 10 years. Fans getting upset, players coming in upset. Mr. Rooney would sit there and say, that's my coach. You know what? And that's how we're rolling, and that's how we do things. And I just wish we had more organizations like that say, you know what? I'm behind our guys. And we don't care. We're going to ride this storm out, and we're going to continue to go with the guy that we believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like the Jets have somebody in mind? Is there somebody that they're thinking about hiring? The weird part about that is you're on this 1 year, maybe 2 year rental with Rodgers. So it's like it's such a win right now type energy, right? Rodney, what do you think? Do they have somebody in mind when they made this move?
Yeah, just like I said earlier. This is the worst job in football. You don't want this job. I don't want this job. I wouldn't want this job because you don't have a quarterback. You got the media. You got all the pressure, the unrealistic expectations for the Jets. There's no way I would want this job if I'm somebody out on the market. If I'm Ben Johnson in Detroit, you think I'm leaving Detroit to come to this mess in New York? Absolutely not.
But let's not even go there long term. Let's look at the rest of this year. 7 teams are going to make the playoffs. If we start talking about who might make it, you know who we're talking about? The Denver Broncos, the Chargers, maybe the Colts. You don't think the Jets fit into that mold? Yeah. I mean, give your team a chance to be a playoff team. This is not going to help them. Making a change, going to an interim head coach now is not going to help them right now.
And every day dealing, hold on, Jack, every day dealing with that New York media, those players, whether you're a veteran or you're a young guy, you have to answer questions. What's different about Saleh compared to this other guy? What's this? What's that? And it becomes such a distraction. It's something that you didn't need at this point in time. I thought the Jets were trying to grow. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, I still think they're a top 10 defense. On the offense, Coach, we saw this team not develop as fast as the defense, but at the same time, you don't make a wholesale change like that. Now it affects your locker room. You don't know how many players it offended. You just need to continue to go and fight and not give up on your coach so soon, especially a good dude like Robert Saleh, man. He's just a solid person, man.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of feels that way. Really, the loss to Denver, the one that was in the rain, it was a sloppy game, but they were at home. If they just win that game, I mean, Minnesota and London, Minnesota's as hot as any team. Really, they're hotter than any team in the NFL. That's a hard game. But if they had just beat Denver at home, I don't think we're having this conversation.
No, you're probably right. But we shouldn't be having it anyway. Give your guys a chance. Do you think as an owner, this actually gives you a better chance to win these next 11 games? Next year you want to make a change. You want to go after Bill Belichick or some hot new guy. go ahead and do it. But give your team the best chance to win this year. And changing coaches right now does not do that.
Okay.
And
All
you
right,
talking
well-
about a guy that doesn't even come into meetings. Hold on, talking about a guy, a owner that doesn't even really come into meetings. He's not sitting in a defense and an offensive meetings. He's not spending time with the defensive line and seeing all the different stunts and things like that. So all of a sudden, he picks up the phone, he calls Aaron Rodgers, they have a discussion, and then he ends up firing Robert Saleh. I mean, it's so ridiculous, man, for an owner, like you said, coach, to have a knee-jerk reaction like that and just fire a guy that worked as hard as that dude did. That dude worked hard, and he put a lot into it. And you think about everything that he had to deal with. It's not easy dealing with a guy like Aaron Rodgers every single day. I'm sure you can ask Matt LaFleur and see how happy he is that he doesn't have to wake up and come to work and deal with that every single day. To me, he just was not given enough grace in that space, coach. He should have been given more grace because of what he has to deal with when you're dealing with a strong personality like a Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. All right, we'll leave that one where it sits for now. So we have coaching changes to quarterback changes. I guess we're getting to that point in the year, gentlemen. So the New England Patriots, Drake Maye is going to get called in from the bullpen. Jacoby Brissett is going to take a step back, and they're playing Houston this week. Coach Dungy, I'll start with you. Your thoughts here.
Well, when they drafted Drake Maye and I looked at the schedule, I said, I don't know if you want to play your rookie quarterback early on like this. You got a tough schedule, some very, very good defenses that are coming up. And they went through that stretch. You know, the Jets are a very good defense. The 49ers are a good defense. And so Jacoby takes them and they don't win. So now you feel like, okay, we're not going to be a playoff team. Now I'm going to get my quarterback ready. I just hope that Drake Maye doesn't hit this wall and then lose confidence, Rod.
Yeah, I was in San Diego with the Chargers in 1998 when they drafted Ryan Leaf, and they kind of forced and propelled him to being the starter. And it was absolutely the wrong thing to do because he wasn't prepared. We didn't have a great offensive line. We didn't have a lot of great weapons around him. Same thing that he's going through with the Patriots, weak offensive line, not a lot of talent around him. And his confidence absolutely got destroyed, Coach. You are spot on. He went out there time and time again, turnover. He just didn't have time to develop. He didn't spend enough time on the sideline watching how to be a pro and how to do things and studying your playbook. And to me, I'm actually scared of this kid because if he goes out there, he gets exposed to certain things, he may not be able to bounce back from that. You just never know what a young player goes through. So this is a tough situation. He's very limited with the talent around him. He's got one of the worst offensive lines, if not the worst offensive line in all of football. And you're going to put that young man behind that. I'm afraid for Drake Maye.
Peyton Manning, his rookie year, 3-13, lead the league, set a record, all-time record for interceptions. But Peyton Manning is mentally strong enough and tough enough to be able to handle that. And it didn't matter what people said about him. He knew he was good enough to play, and it wasn't going to shake his confidence. Hopefully Drake Maye has that. Now, one benefit Drake has because of these first 5 games and how the Patriots have played, if it doesn't go well for him, people aren't going to just point the finger at him. They aren't going to say, oh, Drake Maye's a bust because he couldn't do it. No, they saw what happened earlier. So I hope he does well. He's a great young man, but I'm a little bit afraid for him right now.
Yeah. Against the Texans, too. Is that the right first to put him up again? Good luck.
I don't know. That's Rodney and Steve. I want to hear what Rodney has to say.
I would. All I know is this: if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'll blitz the crap out of him.
And I'm sure he will. All right, that these teams, they aren't who we thought they were. So teams coming into the year that we're going, I think that they're going to be a contender. And, Coach, they aren't who we thought they were. Who are the top of those teams in the AFC? Let's go AFC first.
Well, I'm going to start with your hometown team, Jack, the Bengals. Coming into this year, the big question was Joe Burrow. If he's healthy, they've got a great chance. This is a team that was in the Super Bowl, and they've got weapons. Well, it didn't start out that way. Joe's healthy, but he doesn't have his receivers. Defensively, they're a mess. And the last 3 games, their offense has been back. Chase is back. Higgins is back. They're firing on all cylinders, scoring 30 points a game, but they're still not winning, Rodney. So what is the problem in Cincinnati?
Hey, Coach, you know what? At the end of the day, I still believe in the Bengals. And as long as they have Joe Burrow and they're not officially eliminated from the playoffs, and now you got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase playing together as teammates, they're playing with a lot of enthusiasm. I know they've had some problems on the defensive side of the ball. I do believe that they're going to get better. The only unfortunate part about it, they lost their best secondary guy in Dax Hill. So that's going to be a problem. But I still believe in the Bengals. This is a team that we know they can go into Kansas City and beat Kansas City anytime. Okay, there's not a lot of teams in the AFC that we believe can do something like that. And they're just going to compete. And I think Zac Taylor, he's going to turn this thing around. You got Joe Burrow. You got some good leaders on that team. You got some good veterans on the defensive side of the ball and some really good coaches. So I'm not writing the Bengals off. They've disappointed us, but I still believe in the Bengals, Jack.
Yeah.
And no doubt, it doesn't matter who they play. You'd give them an opportunity to win. You're not going to pick against them very often. But my problem with them right now is these last couple of weeks, you're scoring 30-plus points, and that defense is letting you down. So what's going to change? They've got to get their pass rush back. They've got some rushers, so they can get that. But I do, too, Rod, worry about the secondary now with Hill being out. That's going to cause some issues.
I think that the game that killed the Bengals was the New England game. If they had won week one, they would just be in such a better position. You got to win those type of games because then they go into Kansas City, take them all the way to the wire, to Rodney's point, and really could have, some may argue, should have won that game. Then they're a hold away from beating Baltimore in all likelihood. I mean, really, after the Lamar Jackson fumble, you can't lose that game. They got conservative, started kind of playing for the long field goal, running the football, and then you have the botched hold and you lose it. So, I mean, if they beat, who's better in the AFC than Baltimore and then Kansas City? So they're taking the best teams to the wire, and here they are sitting at 1-4 and the sky's falling. It's a really unique position.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with Cincinnati. How about Buffalo? What's going on with the Bills? Hot start, and then what?
I'm a little concerned about Buffalo. They look good against the poor teams. They come up against the good teams in those tough environments, and they haven't shown up. Again, we expect Josh Allen to lead the way, and he's done it. But, Rodney, they don't have the same receivers. They're not the same on defense from what I can see.
Coach, I was just sitting there thinking that, and I won a bunch of Super Bowls with guys without having a number one receiver, but I just think they are missing that number one receiver. And I think Josh Allen realizes how nice and how convenient it is when you have that one guy that you can always count on. Because young players, they show you one thing one week, you get excited about them, then they disappoint you the following week. So, yeah, I do believe they need another playmaker. They lost a lot. Lost leadership in the secondary. Those two safeties and the safeties that they have starting now aren't on the same level as the safeties that they had with Poyer and Micah Hyde. So, not having Von Miller is huge, Coach, on third down, being able to rush, that leadership, that experience, everything that he brings. So, yeah, they're in a tight position. They're in a tough position right now.
And you talked about it last week on the show. When you have a great number one receiver, you kind of know what the coverages are going to be. Stephon Diggs is going to get doubled in those key situations. So your other guys are going to have one-on-one. You don't have to do that much reading. Well, now I don't think you know what the coverages are. Everybody's mixing, and Josh hasn't been quite as smooth without Diggs. And we'll see what happens, see if they can get adjusted to that.
Well, you know what it comes. What happens, Coach, is if they're not running the ball successfully, if they're not running the ball successfully, then it's the Josh Allen show. It's Josh Allen running around, doing his thing, trying to be Superman. And we know, they can compete, they can score some points, but they don't usually win a lot of those games with Josh Allen trying to do it all himself.
We've seen that a lot. All right, NFC. Who is not who we thought they were? Rod, you want to start us off here? San Francisco, Philly. I mean, man, take your pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. And I said that this team should be, the team that's favored in the NFC, but obviously a lot of, below expectations, a lot of injuries. I think Purdy's just playing out, and I'm not blaming him, but he's thrown too many interceptions. The defense, they've had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And losing Javon Hargrave, he is one of the top guys in all of football. He's one of the highest paid guys, and that's a huge, huge blow. And not having Christian McCaffrey, I mean, that's huge on him, Coach.
Yeah, they've missed some guys, especially McCaffrey and Kittle for a couple of games, just getting Ayuk back in. But here's what I'm not used to seeing with the 49ers, Rob. Fourth quarter against the Rams, you're up 10 points and you lose the game. Fourth quarter against Arizona, you're up 10 points and you lose the game. We're not used to that San Francisco defense giving up leads like that in the big moments. And, you mentioned some injuries there, but they've got to get it going. I think they can. I think they're still one of the best teams in the league. But those are some losses we're not used to seeing from the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. And those losses come back in January, and you're like, oh, my goodness, now we have to go on the road as opposed to, being at home playing those football games.
How about with Philly? So you have to see the Eagles right now.
I am just not sure what's going on with them. Their identity is what I'm concerned with. Yes, they haven't had their wide receivers, and they'll get those guys back, and that'll change things around on offense. But Jalen Hurts getting sacked 13 times, their defense not really getting pressure. They're giving up 5 yards a carry. They used to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and we're just not seeing that. I think they've got to get back there. You got Saquon Barkley. You got a big offensive line. Go out there and prove it week in and week out, dominate up front, get some pass rush from those defensive linemen, get back to Philadelphia football.
And I think it really starts with Nick Sirianni. I mean, I just think that he hasn't been very good this year. Some of the decisions that he's made, some of the mistakes that he's made, and some of the decisions that he's made to put his team in certain situations, getting too cute at times, not doing the simple calls or the ordinary calls. I think at times players have lost confidence in him. His staff has lost confidence in him, and he's got to get it going. He's got to turn this thing around. This is a very talented young team. They got some really good pieces. And, Coach, another guy that I look at too, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, I have the utmost respect for Jalen Hurts and everything that he's overcome. But you can't tell me, and I look at Jalen Hurts and I try to study him, it's just I don't see the same guy. I don't see that same dog. I don't see that same sense of urgency. I don't see that same hunger that I saw a couple years ago before the big contract. I don't see when he's dropping back, he's very casual. People are blitzing him. I don't see him jumping over people, trying to run over people, trying to get those extra yards. I don't see that same Jalen Hurts. And that's the Jalen Hurts they need to have if they're going to contend for any type of championship, if they want to win the division. He's got to get that dog back up in him. Yeah, I know he got paid $200-something million. He's comfortable. He's in a good place. Forget that. That should give you the piece that you need to go out there and be the football player you need to be. And it starts with the quarterback. He has to be the one to elevate. Just like the Cowboys last week. Dak Prescott was the one that elevated him. After the mistakes, he made the key play in the fourth quarter. That's what it takes. And I want to see Jalen Hurts get back to being that dog, being hungry, being motivated, and as opposed to just being so casual when he drops back and when he's playing football.
I do think they need more from Jalen. I don't know that it's a mental thing or comfortable. I think his injury last year, I think he's now – hey, I got to make sure I stay healthy. I've got to be there for my guys for 17 games. And he's not playing as reckless as he did in the past. And maybe they need that from him.
Yeah. Yeah. We're having this conversation with Cincinnati, who paid Burrow a ton of money, Philly, who paid him a ton of money, Buffalo, who paid Josh Allen a ton of money. You just wonder how much of it, too, is when you pay one guy that type of bag, what happens to the rest of the roster, right? And we saw these guys explode earlier in their careers. When the rest of the roster's got a bunch of good players, it just becomes a lot harder, does it not?
Yeah, no, when you pay your quarterback, you can't pay everybody else. So you lose critical pieces. Philadelphia couldn't pay Hassan Reddick, okay? And so he leaves. Buffalo can't pay Stephon Diggs, so he leaves. And that takes something out of you, no question about it.
Yeah, yeah. There's no Jesse Bates back there for the Bengals anymore. There's just little guys that you just feel. DJ Reader left. I mean, there's just little pieces, but they start to add up on your team. All right, let's get to who is eating good in the neighborhood. This is served by Applebee's. Kansas City, they paid Mahomes $500 million. It still looks pretty good out there with Cleveland, doesn't it?
Well, Jack, their coach, I just have a lot of admiration for. And I'm reading all the stuff leading up to this game against the Saints. The Chiefs, they have no weapons now. They have no firepower. I don't know if they're going to be able to compete. Juju Smith-Schuster, he brings them back off the street when nobody else wanted him. Kareem Hunt is at home, relaxing. He signs him to the practice squad, puts him in there. Play 4 tight ends if you have to. I'll help my offensive tackles, Chip. And we put up almost 500 yards with guys that we haven't even heard of, Rod. And it's just, that's the Kansas City way they do things. And I have to tip my hat to Andy Reid.
Coach, I'm on the same page. It is unbelievable. You're sitting there watching them beat up on the Saints, and you're like, who are these guys? And it's like you go back to Andy Reid and just his creative play calling and the trust and the faith that he had. They had some big tight end that I've never even seen. And, and he's catching passes and lining up like a wide receiver. And I'm like, this is Andy Reid. And I've always said, if Andy Reid puts you on the field, he has confidence in you, just like he has confidence in the starter. But it's really amazing. And I'll tell you one thing that, once again, we have to realize, it's not just the Saints, it's not just the Chiefs offense, but it's the Chiefs defense.
Amen.
It's
Amen
their defense.
To that.
And I just tell you, and Coach, every time I mention Steve Spagnuolo, he's the best in the business. He motivates his guys. He puts them in great positions. And you look at a guy like Justin Reed, who's been there for 4 or 5 years. He's come over there, and he's just been a really good safety. Chris Jones, George Kalafdis, those guys play together. They play with passion, and he's just the best. Steve Spagnuolo is just the best in the game.
Yeah, we talked about losing guys. Yeah, you're paying Patrick. You can't pay everybody. L'Jarius Sneed goes. Willie Gay leaves. Key guy from last year. And hey, let's put some young guys in and let's roll. We're not going to even miss a beat. And that's Steve, and you got to give him credit too.
Mm-hmm. You do. And they probably have, I mean, they do. They have the best offensive coach in Andy Reid. They have the best defensive coordinator in Spags. And to be able to win back-to-back Super Bowls and Spags doesn't become a head coach somewhere and you still have him is impossible. I mean, that just doesn't happen in the NFL, right? You win back-to-back Super Bowls, and they poach all your coordinators, and you got to start over. But they're in this really unique space of being able to have that continuity, and you feel it. I mean, they're the best team in the NFL. It's like, who's going to beat them? I catch myself thinking that every week. It's like, who is going to beat this team? New Orleans looked good to start the year. They didn't have a chance on Monday night. They never had a chance in that game.
Well, you say who's going to beat them, and the only team in the AFC that I believe that can beat them will be the Baltimore Ravens. Because the Ravens are really starting to find out about themselves. They're learning about their defensive coordinator. He's a young guy. He's learning about his players. So I anticipate the defense over the course of the season, they're going to continue to get better. And I think Lamar is really building confidence obviously in the run game, but with these tight ends, these wide receivers, and who knows, they might go out and get Devontae Adams. You never know. And that really takes this team to the next level.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess that's a perfect transition into the best teams in the AFC. So both of you guys submitted the best teams in the AFC. Let's flash them up. Coach on the left, Rodney on the right. Coach, take us through your top 5 first.
Well, first of all, I'm proud of Rodney Harrison. He's thinking like a coach now. He's got it lined up there 1 through 4 in pretty good shape. Chiefs and the Ravens we talked about. I think they're the class of the league. I love what the Texans are doing. Coming on, and C.J. Stroud gives them a chance every week. Bills haven't played their best, but they're still there. You still have to deal with them. And then when I got to number 5, I went with the Broncos just because of the way their defense is playing. They're still a work in progress on offense, but that 5 spot could go to a number of different teams. I went with the Broncos because of their defense.
And Coach, what I'll do is, obviously you went over the first 4, and I'm going to focus on the Steelers, and I have to tell you that you were 100% correct on Justin Fields and the quarterback situation. You look at Justin Fields, and we talked about it on Sunday, that he can't make just the normal, simple plays. And if you can't make the normal, simple plays, you're not going to have a chance in this league. And I do believe that they're going to go with Russell Wilson. They should go with Russell Wilson and give him an opportunity to be the starter. You're spot on with that, Coach. He gives you accuracy. He's going to give you that leadership, that consistency. You are right, Coach Dungy.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, if you'd been with me at the Thursday practice, Russell's trying to work his way back in. He's running the scout team. And if you didn't know it, you would have thought he had the first receivers going against the scout team defense. He threw some balls against the Steelers' first D that just were right on point. And when you saw the guys react to him and just kind of shake their heads in admiration, I'm thinking, yeah, when this guy gets back in there, he's going to give them a lift of confidence.
Hey, Coach, remember we were on the field and we saw Russell Wilson. He kept pacing back and forth, and he had his earplugs in. He had this real serious look. So I go up and he sees me. He says, "What's up, Rod?" And I ask him, I said, "Russ, I know this is tough on you not playing. How are you taking it?" He says, "Well, it's tough because I want to play." But he says, "I know what my job is. My job is to help this team and help Justin Fields any way I can, and that's what I'm willing to do." And he said that with such humility, but with so much conviction in his eyes. And I was like, wow. And then it just brought me right back to you and said, this guy needs to be the starter. And Jack, we saw him last year in Denver when he beat, was it Minnesota? Yeah. And he threw that pass in the back of the corner of the end zone.
We're standing right there in the back of the end zone. Yep.
Russell Wilson, like you said, Coach, will give them opportunities. Whereas Justin Fields, he's throwing the ball over. He's not accurate. He's throwing the ball in people's feet. You like, why can't he make just an easy, simple pass? And it makes it difficult on an offensive coordinator when you're trying to coach a guy like that. But you were spot on with Russell Wilson. Absolutely.
Will it be this week? When do you think we see Russ?
I think it really depends on his health. And he told us that he felt pretty good, like he was back and ready to go. Now, he hasn't gone full speed in any practice drills. If he gets a full speed week of practice, I would not be surprised if we don't see him this week.
Let's go. Time to let Russ once again. How about the worst teams in the AFC, Coach? Let's go Rodney first. Rodney, the worst in the AFC. How do you see this bottom group?
And I would go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. No one had the Jacksonville Jaguars where they're at now. I expected them to be a playoff team. The Patriots, I figured they would struggle with a young quarterback and not a lot of talent. The Tennessee Titans, I knew they would struggle, even though they have some talent on offense. Will Levis. And then the Browns, Deshaun Watson, all the ups and downs that he's dealing with, too many distractions off the field. And the Miami Dolphins, they just look a disaster. They just look a mess, Coach.
They really do. Without Tua, the offense has no rhythm. And what we saw, just precise ball moving up and down the field, all the speed, we're not seeing that at all. The Browns were a top 3 defense last year, and we're seeing them get carved up. You're right. The Jaguars, I thought, would be a playoff contender. They have not been very good on defense. They got the offense going a little bit. Tank Bigsby gave them a little lift, but they're still not stopping people. That bottom 5 is right there, and we're in agreement on who they are. We just have them in different orders, but these teams are rebuilding for the future, I think.
A list you definitely don't want to be on.
No.
You do not want to be on that list. Does it feel like Belichick or Vrabel or one of these guys who's sitting on the sideline this year that we've seen have success as a head coach could jump in on one of those teams and lead one of those teams? Is that in the back of either of your guys' minds?
Well, if you're talking Belichick, I would look at these 5 teams and say, if I'm Coach Belichick, I'm not coaching any of these 5 teams because they don't have a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, and even if you go to Jacksonville, you're not winning in Jacksonville. You're not going to win a bunch of games in Jacksonville, beating the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the AFC. I don't like those teams for Coach Belichick. Now, for Vrabel, I would say, yeah, but not Coach Belichick. I think he's trying to win right now.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it, if you look at that list, okay, the Browns were in the playoffs last year. Miami was in the playoffs last year. Jacksonville was one game away from the playoffs. And so you're even at the bottom of the league now, you're not that far away. But Rodney said it's quarterback play really drives the train in so many cases.
It sure does. All right, the NFC's best teams. Coach Dungy, I'll have you lead this one off.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Vikings have surprised me. When they lost J.J. McCarthy, I'm thinking, oh, well, all the plans are off. Sam Darnold has played great football. Lions are winning. They've got a dynamic running game. They've got receivers all over the field. They've got speed. I'm concerned a little bit about their defense, and especially when they go on the road, can that defense hold up? The surprise for me is the Commanders at number 3. I didn't think we'd say this for another couple of years, but their organization has changed, new ownership, their quarterback has changed, and they have life, they have belief. They've got pass rushers up front on defense. They're going to be a handful. Then when you get to 4 and 5, I don't know who it is. I went with the Falcons because I was just impressed with their will to win, their drive, their desire to hang in there. Kirk Cousins, if you protect him, he's giving them good quarterback play. And I still think the 49ers, with all the things we talked about earlier on, they still have enough talent. They still have Kyle Shanahan. I think they're there. And you look at anybody else in the NFL, if they're playing against the Niners, who am I favoring? I'm probably favoring the 49ers, so I put them at 5.
That's a really good list, Coach. And I see we are basically, well, very similar. I look at the Vikings, and Sam Darnold should be MVP right now. I just think that he's playing fantastic football, and this is a complete team. They got a really good offense, a lot of really underrated weapons, but they have a really good defense, obviously. The Detroit Lions, I think they're really starting to grow as a team. The Washington Commanders, Coach, I have them right there. Jaden Daniels, he's been unbelievable. I have the Packers, and the Packers always find and manage a way to kind of stick around, to be right there in the mix. I still believe in LaFleur. Big fan of Jordan Love. The Cowboys are the number 5 team, and I just was really impressed with the way they finished at the end. Dak Prescott, he had some adversity, threw a couple picks. They missed I think they had a field goal blocked. And at the end, when it mattered most, Dak came through. All that didn't even matter. Dak finished the game, something that he has to continue to do.
Yeah. Guys, I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, is Washington high enough? I'm just thinking, are they high enough as this season plays out? The Lions and the Vikings, I think Washington has a better quarterback than both of them. Am I crazy for saying that?
Well, they might, and we'll see how it goes. Their defense, right now, they're playing great ahead football. Jaden Daniels is getting them ahead, and they can rush the passer. They've got some big people inside. They put pressure on you. But I want to see how they do when games are even, when they have to go on the road. If that defense has to stop people, we'll see how they are. Maybe you're right, Jack, but let's give it a few more weeks to see.
Coach, no, we'll give it 1 week. We'll give it 1 week because they play the Baltimore Ravens. They play the Baltimore Ravens, so they're gonna get a good offense. They're gonna get a big physical team. They're gonna have to chase Lamar Jackson around. If they can beat Baltimore, then we're gonna look at them as saying they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in all of football.
Fair enough. All right, how about the NFC's worst teams? Rod, the bottom of the NFC. What do you see?
Obviously, it's the Panthers. I love the switch at quarterback. You put Bryce on the sideline, allow him to heal mentally, emotionally, and kind of continue to grow physically. The Eagles have been a disappointment. You got to look at the head coach, Nick Sirianni. It's a very talented team, but they need to be led in the right directions. The Saints were very disappointing. I thought Cameron Jordan, you watch him, he's not the same player. I thought that secondary was one of the top secondaries in the league. They continue to play undisciplined football. The Rams have just been ravaged when injuries. Sean McVay does his best to keep them competitive. And the 49ers, I had this team as the best team in the NFC, and they haven't played up to par. I still believe in the San Francisco 49ers, like you talked about, Coach Kyle Shanahan and those guys. Christian McCaffrey gets back healthy. They're still going to be a team that you have to deal with because of all the experience, but just haven't played up to expectations.
And we basically agree on those bottom 4. You can put them in any order and shake them up, and I agree with Rodney. That 5th spot, I was looking, and if you really look at it, I think Rodney is right. If you look at the last 2 weeks, the way these teams have played, I put the Giants in there. They've won their games, but they've been fortunate to win them, and so we'll see what happens this week. The Giants can be good and come on. I think they're in that group that still needs a little bit more. I look at their points against them. points for them, point differential. They're one of the teams at the bottom of the league. But if they get everybody back healthy, they get Malik Neighbors back. Daniel Jones is playing much better than he did early in the year. Maybe they come out of that group.
And coach, that defense has gotten a lot better too. You look at that defense, the interior with Dexter Lawrence. You add in a Brian Burns, who automatically he just gives them so much speed and athleticism. Tavon Thibodeau, Karake is one of the top tackling linebackers in all of football, and they got a young secondary. So I like what they're building on the defensive side of the ball. And like you talked about, Daniel Jones is doing a great job. It seems like the game has kind of slowed down for him. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because the much improved offensive line. He actually has time. When he's dropping back, he doesn't have to worry about somebody getting through with, before the 2 seconds happen. He's actually getting protection, and he has enough athleticism. And the thing the kid has that no one really talks about, man, this kid gets crushed. He gets hit so hard, and all he does is get up, run back to the huddle, and toss the ball to the ref. You never see him complaining. You never see him do anything. So I like Daniel Jones. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback, but he's gotten significantly better, Coach.
No, he has. And what has happened because of the way that offense has played the last 3 or 4 weeks, that lets the defense become stars. We're getting to see those guys, Thibodeau and Burns and Dexter, show up because now they're playing ahead and they're rushing the passer in the fourth quarter instead of just getting run on and just teams running out the clock. So they're coming on. They definitely are, no question.
And Thibodeau is going to be out week to week, so he's going to be banged up. So we'll see how that affects him. So how about opening thoughts? The Bengals, and we've touched on them so far, they're 1-4. We know what that's looked like. The Giants coming off the big win against Seattle, getting it done late. Opening thoughts on our game, Sunday Night Football. Rod, lead us off.
Don't sleep on the Bengals. I'm telling you, don't get caught up in that 1-4 record. That 1-4 record, they could easily be 4-1 or 3-2. Don't get caught up. Joe Burrow will show out. He will show up. Jamar Chase and those guys are going to be there. Nationally televised game. They'll be ready. This is their season that's basically in the balance. They're going to come ready to win a football game.
I agree with you, Rod. And I think the one factor in this game is going to be the Giants' pass rush. If those pass rushers don't show up and don't put pressure on Burrow, he's going to throw for 400 yards because those receivers are on fire right now.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was fascinating listening to Burrow say, if we're going to win against Baltimore, I got to play a perfect game. And he played as close to a perfect game as a quarterback can play. And it came down to that one slant route. And I like the idea of still staying aggressive at that point and saying, if Burrow can't be the guy, the closer, if he can't finish out games for us this year, it sure as hell is not going to be the defense. And so at least putting the ball in his hand and going, go finish it. And it's not often you have a slant get picked with Jamar Chase running the route.
Well, the crazy thing about it, you talked about his attitude going into Baltimore. They're going to have that every week. He's going to have to say that. The way their defense is playing now, he's going to have to say, I've got to play perfect. I've got to light it up. We got to score 35 points. And if he goes out with that mentality, they're going to be tough to beat.
Is it that he has to play perfect, or does he have to play just loose? Because to me, perfect seems like you have to do everything right, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to come out here, we're going to be aggressive. I don't care what the situation is. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't say perfect. He's got to be Joe Burrow.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. But I do think it says something from his perspective if he's looking at the team as a whole and how they're playing this first month, and he's saying, I got to play perfect. It means he doesn't think this is a championship roster. He recognizes the holes. He knows that they got to put up a ton of points if they're going to win, and that's just the fact. So maybe perfect is not the right word, but he's got to play really well every week.
Yeah, and trust me, he's a quarterback, so he doesn't care. Hey, if we got to be in shootouts, let's do it. I got my guys. T. Higgins is healthy. Jamar is healthy. We got what's his name, Yossi Voss, the young guy. Hey, let's do it. That's what a quarterback. That's what most quarterbacks want to do.
I really don't think they're done. I think they're going to win this week, and there's going to be a slow touch of momentum that's going to start to build.
I promise you, nobody wants to play them.
Yeah. All right, well, a couple other teams nobody wants to play. Big Ten Saturday night, little college football, Coach, because I know you got a little special connection to this one. Ohio State and Oregon. Your thoughts on the Ducks and some of the connections you have?
Yes, my son played for the Ducks, excuse me, and I'm a anti-Buck growing up in Michigan, so it's going to be a
Yeah.
big game for me. But the Oregon Ducks have been fantastic. Chip Kelly got us started. Dan Lanning has done a great job, and I've gotten to speak to him the last couple of years and speak to the team. And I love what he's done out there. These guys love playing for him, and he's just seems to be able to reload that roster. Bo Nix, we talked about playing great ball for Denver. Bucky Irving is playing lights out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were two big guns in this offense last year. But he's been able to replace those guys, and Dylan Gabriel is playing the same way that Bo Nix played last year. So there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game. It's not going to look like the old Big Ten that I'm used to, 3 yards in a cloud of dust when I played. This is going to be some points on the board, light them up football.
All right, Coach. So I got to say this. Okay, with that all being said, you know how it works. I'm gonna take Ohio State, and you're gonna take Oregon, and we're gonna bet a state.
There we go. There we
That's
go.
all we're gonna do.
There we go.
I want mine well done, though. Okay.
Okay, I like it. You got it locked in. And let's do it in New York City.
Hey, Jack, I'll be eating good in the neighborhood after the game.
Applebee's.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.